Welcome back to another Ab Nation live show with hockey coach Joe Coach Francis directly for the beautiful country of Thailand on an amazing, great Monday night, October 16, 2023. And tonight we have a special guest. Tim Turk is going to join us talking about shooting and scoring in the NHL player or any other level in hockey. I can't wait to welcome Tim Turk. But before that, guys, we want to let you know we have another show after that at 10:30 for all the news about the Montreal Canadiens with all the kind of injuries. So on this show, we'll be more particular to talking with Tim Turk about the scoring, like I said, and the skill as a hockey coach. And of course, we're going to talk about any question you have for Tim. We're going to go through your question tonight. We'll be here for about 60 minutes, and then we're going to talk about Montreal the following show after that. So thanks for joining us tonight. We have a lot of people in the chat already for all around the world. And I can't wait to present to you guys, of course, our friend, the coach. We call him the legend. Mr. Tim Turk is in the house tonight. Welcome for the first time inside of the Ab Nation show.
Coach Frenchie, man, I'm very grateful for you having me and a chance to put a face to the name, and like you said, you met me before, but I've met so many faces and coaches. I'm like, hey, man, now I feel bad I don't remember. But guess what? Like to provide people with information, to provide them with details and technical things that can maybe help them to help their players, their coaching, their kids. And that's what I'm here for. And that's what my passion is. And that's never going to change.
We appreciate a lot. You take the time to be with us tonight. A lot of people, all different age. Where I'll see two young men here, about 14, 16 years old, play hockey. So I think it would be really, really good for them to hear from one who make a lot of great countenance in hockey. Of course, I would like to hear, sharing a little bit with the people in the house, a little bit your background. I know honestly what you did, but maybe for the new people, never know about the name of Tim Turk. So let us know about what you did for many, many years in hockey.
One of the things one of the questions I get quite a bit all around the world whether I'm doing live nation shows or just doing seminars and trying to pass along some information. I started this whole thing when I was a youngster, and I was a shooter for a goalie coach. And way back then, they never had puck shooting machines, so goalie coaches needed to have players to shoot pucks. And I remember as I was shooting pucks for this particular goalie coach, my heart goes out to him because he got me to where I am today. His name is Michaelis Cicero. And Michaelis Cicero was one of the most motivating, energetic goalie coaches that I would probably put him in the front of the line when it comes to teaching net minding. So I took his actual habits and his deliveries and made them into mine because of the way how positive he was, how reinforcing he was, how energetic he was. But I was shooting on his goalies for a couple of years, and he had a great idea. He's like, you know what? Back then, we're talking 35 years ago. Coach Frenchie, back then there were goalie coaches and there were skating coaches.
Yep.
There might have been, there's always skating. There might have been a puck handling or stick handling coach that showed up from Eastern Europe, like Russia or something like that. But there wasn't just a singular, specific shooting skill coach. So he came up with the idea and said, if I ask you to shoot to the glove, you shoot to the glove. If I ask you to shoot to the blocker, you shoot to the blocker. If I ask you to shoot low stick, you're really good at shooting. You should teach it. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, I'm okay. I just want to, I was young. I didn't know. I just want to work for you. And, I don't know how to do business. I don't know how would I get people in? And he's like, let me give it some thought. So he gave it some thought. And then Coach Frenchie, he came up and he's like, listen, he's like, I think that every goalie knows a player, at least one. So I'm going to open up a shooting school in my goalie school because it just goes hand in hand. And you can shoot on the goalies and then you can go teach a shooter. You can shoot on the goalies and go teach a shooter. And I'm like, how are you going to get them in here? He said, well, I'll put a sign on the wall that says, any goalie that brings in a shooter for our new shooting school gets a free session. So the parents of the goalies are like, hey, there's a new shooting school coming up. No, it's the first of its kind, and that's how it all started. And then it just elevated. And then players like Steven Stamkos, when he was 11 years old, would come in. Jason Spezza, like all the guys from around the area that would be here that wanted to shoot would come in. And there's so many more off the top of my head. I need Santa's list to be able to name them all.
That's awesome. You can feel already your passion about this, the love of the game. And that's why, our age, we are most and more the same age. We just want to carry on this to the young people, right? They have that kind of passion to the coaches or anybody want to learn about hockey. And that's great about that. But from that moment, after that, you grow as a power skill. I remember me at the beginning. I've been to meet Paul Vincent. I don't know if you remember Paul Vincent, power skater, skating in hockey. And Paul teach me a lot about become a coach. I was lucky to get him teaching me to become a coach and around junior, everything like that. But tonight, I would like you to go a little bit more deeper. I know you have some kind of work with the Carolina Hurricane, the Montreal Canadiens, and give us a little bit more your background about your interaction with the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. Unofficially, I want to say the year was probably 1997, 1998, about 24, 25 years ago. I just had been doing it for so long, and so many players had come through at that time. And I've been doing it for a while. And then I started to get known how the hockey stick works technically. The the human motion patterns, the actual motion patterns, not the automated ones, but the human ones. So stick companies were like, this guy knows his stuff. If we talk to him about, how a stick is actually manually used, maybe he can help us to manufacture some good sticks. So there was a stick company that came to me way back when. You might remember these sticks, Coach Frenchy, but they actually are, if you're in Montreal right now, they were called the Montreal hockey
Yep.
sticks. They were made in Finland. You remember Montreal
Oh
hockey
yeah.
sticks? Like, that's one of the way that those sticks came about is one of the best stories. I'll save that one for next time. But so the owner of that hockey stick company, or one of the owners, the last name was Numanen. So the Numanen family, you remember Teppo Numanen?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So Teppo Numanen was Winnipeg at the time, and then he ended up going to the Buffalo Sabres later on. And I would go down there and visit Teppo because I helped them with their sticks. And then he would ask me to come on the ice just after practice and work with him. So obviously I get recognized. Daniel Briere is there, Derek Owa, Brian Campbell, all those guys at that time. They're like, what the hell is this old defenseman that never scores goals working with a shooting coach? What's going on there? So that would have been the first time that I unofficially started working in the NHL. And then obviously when you're good at something, they tend to gravitate to you. So I don't know if you remember, but Danny Briere went from Buffalo
Yep.
and he went over to Philly. So if you're good, these people bring them with you. So I ended up going unofficially to Philadelphia. And then there was a fella who was a skills coach in Montreal way back when called Jack Baucus. I don't know if you remember Jack Baucus. He was a coach, a skills coach, and he was a friend with Bob Gainey and Guy Carbonneau at the time. Well, he decided he was gonna. This would have been in 2005, the year of Carey Price's draft year. He decided he was going to retire. So a young guy at the time who was in the management team, who was a director of player personnel and head scout, Trevor Timmins, his good friend, NHL skating coach Paul Lawson, is one of my good buddies. So all of a sudden, Trevor Timmins is like, geez, we need another skills coach. So Paul Lawson's like, well, I know the shooting guy. Yeah, his name is Tim Turk. He goes, I haven't heard of Tim Turk. Who the fuck's Tim Turk? Like, who's this guy? So he goes, you got to meet him. So Trevor invited me down to meet him at the combine in 2005 when the players were getting tested. And I'll tell you, Coach Frenchie, I would be, from that day to this day, the most out of shape NHL level coach in the world.
Wow.
And if anyone knows of Trevor Timmins, if they know of his background, that guy could win a middleweight bodybuilding contest. I would never sit beside him and take my shirt off in the same room. you know what I mean? So I got introduced to Trevor Timmins, and at the time they had this project kid, and I don't mean to talk your ears off here, but I started with Montreal in 2005, and there was a player that was out of Brandon, Manitoba. His name was Brock Trotter. So I don't know if you guys remember back then, but Brock Trotter, and he was a very highly skilled player that went to Denver University, and he was undrafted. They picked him up as a free agent, and they wanted him to be one of the next superstars. So I've worked on him as much as possible. And then from there, I mean, I worked for Guy Carbonneau, and then Guy Boucher. He came in the American League level, and then he went to Tampa, and then I went from Montreal to Tampa, and then Kirk Muller is a really good friend of mine. So I went from Tampa to Carolina Hurricanes. I set an NHL record in 2012. I worked with the Montreal Canadiens, and then the next week after, I went to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the next week after, I went to the Carolina Hurricanes. It's the first time coach ever worked for three teams in 3 consecutive weeks. So I'm blessed.
That's you met so many people, everybody, because I've been there so many times. NHL association seminar. I went to many seminar. The name the Tim Turk guys is everywhere, every time. And every year, Tim, you do all the kind of speaker around the world talking about hockey, right?
Absolutely, yes. That's the blessing, Coach Frenchie. And you know that point I feel since 2012 until now, I've worked with another six NHL organizations and many players from around the world and national teams. You know, from Austria to Switzerland to Finland and Sweden, and you know, I've been so blessed to be able to do that. So you know, there's these kids all the time, Coach Frenchie. They're like, "Have you ever worked with this guy? Have you ever worked with that guy? Have you?" And I'm like, "Guys, I've been at this level for almost 30 years, and you got to ask me who I haven't worked with. That's how blessed I am."
That's great. You still continuous, I follow also, many years ago, like, not many score, many power score, skill coach, like you said earlier. One is really great. One is Daniel Belfry. I know, I'm sure you know Daniel, working at many player with Patrick Kane, and I met him a couple of times in Florida when they have his camp over there. But you have an honor to work with Brendan Gallagher and Kirby Dak the last couple of years, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And you know, before we get into any analyzing, I can say everyone asks me who my favorite players at the NHL that I've ever worked with, and by far, hands down, is Brendan Gallagher because he's got so many influences that he does. He's got so much different passion for improvement, and how his routines that we call routines aren't routines. His routines are the other word. They're the ritual. They're the ones that make them a routine, and he's the one that everyone wants to be like. And we're not talking about his size, his pound for pound strength, or anything like that. It's his attitude for winning, and it's so contagious. And every time that I were this past summer, you know, and players, they age, players mature, you know, so sometimes their game changes, but not their attitude and not the way that they want to compete. And every time I go on the ice with Brendan Gallagher, he teaches me something. So I look forward to it.
So his work ethic, it looked like he's the way he play all the time. But since the last couple of years, he's still a player get hurt a lot. He still don't have a great the beginning of the season yet. But what he need to do as experience, you work with him, but also maybe other players. What do you think what Brendan need to improve more for the next couple, for this upcoming season? You feel like he have to get better.
So I think one of the things going into this upcoming season, if you could rewind back to one of his 30 goal seasons where, you know, he would have the puck in possession, he would accelerate through the neutral zone, and then when he would cross over the blue line, he would shoot. He would just get the puck to the net, you know, and hopefully if the deception was there, he I would say he would score more goals with the deceptive type, but he can also produce second chance opportunities. So if I were to give him advice, it would be just, you know, on the tape, off the tape, get the puck to the net, turn the D around, and then you can charge where your office is. You can go and dig up all the scraps and all the poo poo and go get that. But right now he's like I would say he's into a fatherly mode with all the younger players. He's mentoring them. So that doesn't mean his game is going to go subpar because this game's always going to stay the same, but it's just a different direction.
So I'm going to talk about Quebec in the next couple of minutes. But before that, for 30 more years involved with hockey, what is the biggest change? And I said to you the last 20 years, what before when you was teaching players and now what you have to turn around to change maybe new details of the game. So what's all the biggest transformation?
You know what? That's a great question, Coach Frenchie. And there's been an evolution in a lot of different things. The style of play. There's an evolution in the style of play. There's an evolution in positional play and also visionary play and preparation side of things. So on the shot side of things, one of the things that evolves the most is the equipment, how the stick has gotten lighter, how it's gotten the textures have changed, the feel has changed. So now these players have to evolve into different feels. And sometimes the typical pattern that they have or the typical lie angle or the typical flex might need to be modified to allow them to evolve with the evolution of the game or the style of the game or the new system that they have to get into. So shooting a puck is not just about hand and arm technique. It's all about body stability. It's about how you stabilize your body, how you can react to things before, during, and after. And I tell players all the time, sometimes that when you're shooting a puck or you're preparing to shoot, sometimes what your body does before or prior to, during, and after a shot, your body could be more important than the actual pinpoint location of the puck because you need to be prepared and ready for what comes next. So when players go in and lift up a foot, do the single leg shot, then their posture goes up in the air. And when their posture goes up in the air, they're unstabilized and someone bumps into them and it puts them off their line and now they're recovering. Now they have to chase and recover. And when you're in chase mode or pursuing, then that means you're behind. And we want everybody to be in front.
That's a great point about that. You know, some people talk about the hockey stick in the chat right now. It's the flex of the hockey, the way he is now. What is the biggest change you see inside of a hockey stick now compared like 10 years ago already? Like 10 years ago, the stick was not the same anymore.
Yeah, no, I think like it's the weight. The weight's the biggest thing, and I can say in the last 5 to 7 years, in my experience, I would say that the players what they're doing the most. Now, this is after a player's matured, fully grown. Let's say they're at the major junior level or the junior level or college level and above. The biggest change is the flex of the stick and the weight of the stick. And I've never in like I do a lot of stick modifications. That's one of the things we did prior to Brendan Gallagher's first 30 goal season was do a little bit of modifying to his blade curve and his position of the puck on the blade and stuff like that. So what happens is these players are starting to lower their flex as they grow when they're already. I think I don't know the actual number, Coach Frenchie, but in the last 5 to 7 years, I think I've modified probably over 100 NHL player sticks. And in
Wow.
that time, and over 100 of these players, I have never stiffened their stick. I've never shortened the height and I've never lowered the lie. So I've always, the lie angle, when we have the lie angle, what happens is, so this angle that's right here, I've always upped the lie. I've always moved it up. I've always made it more flexible and I've always made it taller. So I've never stiffened up unless the player's 12 or 13 years old and they're getting more strength, then you have to obviously add flex. But in all that time, I don't know anybody that I've worked with in the last 5 to 7 years who uses over an 85 flex other than OV.
Wow. Yeah, many players, they raise you to teaching them during the summer and to, private coaching, return on that. And one question I've used is what they're really looking for. I know it's a scoring, but what is the biggest change you need to improve them? Usually, is it the position of their hands? Is it the weight? Is it the details of their angle of the blade on the puck? Or is it their knee? What is the biggest you think they need to improve the most? Most in general, the young player, the junior player, prospect NHL, you teach, or the player already in NHL.
Well, the biggest one, there's a combination of two things. One is the posture level of the player. So how tall they are when they're in their compete mode, what their hip position and shoulder position is when they release a puck. And I'm trying to do a what I call a stride formation foundational release. So are you a righty or a lefty, Coach Frenchie?
I'm right.
You're a righty. Okay, so it's two good guys on this show right now. You and I. We're both righties. So picture this: if you're going down the ice and you have the ability to shoot a puck, you're going to stop your feet from moving. They're going to be parallel beside each other, and then all you're going to do is coast. And as a righty, I would like you to. The foundation is to shoot with your right leg going back, like you're taking a skating stride as you're releasing. And as that leg goes back, because it's going back, something has to go forward. So this is your lower body that starts to go back, your upper body goes forward. And good shooters look like they explode out of their chest. So for that chest to go forward, something has to go back. So that's one. Try and get space in between their feet in that skating stride release. And the more distance you get, the lower the body goes. So picture for guys like us, if our right leg goes back, our left foot's gliding, picture our right knee at a 90-degree angle. So it's kind of like getting as low as possible when you shoot to produce power and stability. That's one. The second one, the biggest change is the starting position of the puck after it's being loaded up to shoot. A lot of players take it back really far because of the mental mindset that they need to shoot. They feel like they can gain more power by loading it back farther. Kind of like a slingshot. They pull it back like
Yep,
this,
yep.
and then they let it go. So they feel like if I load the puck back far, then I'm going to get more power, and it's going to help me to score more goals. But it's far from the truth, because the pushing motion, like you said, of the front bottom hand happens in different spaces for every player, but it's always in a frontal position. It's never in a rear position. So my job is to make sure they move the puck up closer to the frontal position before they release it, so it's closer to the target. And scientific physics says, the closer it is to the target, the faster it'll get there.
You have the shooter like Stints and Ovechkin, one of the one-timer shot or the wrist shot is come with the strength, with strong players, right? They already have a lot of strength. But then you have now the new, the Matthews and the Bedard. I would like to do a little bit more, give us a bit more about, tell us a bit more about what changed their shot on the net.
So I get that question quite a bit. It's a real good one. I make a comparison ratio between Austin Matthews and Connor Bedard, and the one difference is this. Well, there's many differences, but obviously one's a righty, the good guy, and then one's a lefty. That's poo poo. Lefties are poo poo. I'm just kidding, but so Matthews is a lefty and Bedard's a righty. Now, when we shoot a puck, Coach Frenchie, what happens to the puck is a high percentage of a shooter will start with the puck, whether it's loaded back or beside them. They'll start with it beside their body. When they go to shoot, they'll bring it inward. It starts to come in. A large percentage of players do that all the time. So they pull it in to take a shot. We're talking about changing the angle. The angle that comes in at is different for everybody. So what makes Matthews such a lethal shooter is when he pulls it inward, it comes almost lateral, almost straight in. Every other shooter, like you and I, when we bring it inward, it goes forward a little bit more, like 45 degrees, 50 degrees, something like that, when Matthews is almost bringing it in lateral 180. Bedard has Matthews beat, in my opinion, just on the shot. If I had to choose someone to shoot a puck quick with optimal speed, power, accuracy, I'm going to pick Bedard right now over Matthews because I know them both, but just by a millimeter, just by 1 percentile, because when Bedard brings his puck in, it goes negative angle. So sometimes it goes reverse back towards the body and then comes in. So that is very deceptive, and it makes the goalies move. It's kind of like, the old Western days, those guys that ride horses,
Yep.
they call them cowboys, right? They're cowboys. So think of this, Coach Frenchie. if you and I had to get into a gunfight because we're both cowboys and we're fighting over a lady, and we're just going to settle it like men. We're going to go outside. Where is our gun? Where's our gun located? Where do we put it? It's on our what? It's on our hip,
Yep.
right beside us. And usually the gunslinger or the cowboy that gets the gun out the quickest is the happiest guy, unless he's a shitty shot and he's not accurate. You know what I mean? But usually the quicker guy wins. And that's what Matthews and Bedard look like when they shoot. Looks like they're pulling the gun right off their hip and pow, they shoot it right away. So there's no space in between their arms that the goalie can see the movement. It's harder for them to see. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can see when they use that kind of power they use on the shot. So I like people in the chat. So what I'm going to do, I would like to show to you different clips about what you teach, but maybe some people in the chat can understand a little bit more about the difference between the player shoot from a different angle, everything like that. So if it's okay with you, we can go that play, and I can see the graphic right here if it's okay with you. People want
Absolutely.
to know about Kirby Doc. You know, you teach him during the summer. Kirby Doc. I cut the sound, by the way, but you can give us a little bit more information what you need to improve for Kirby Doc to become a bit more a scorer in NHL.
Absolutely. So here, this is the evaluation of the fourth time I'm working with him, and he's already modified a lot of things. The thing to focus on is his right hand and right arm, and how far it goes forward in a downward trajectory and locks at the elbow. It's a quick release. So if you can freeze it at the end, like great. See, can you freeze it, Coach Frenchie, just after the puck is released? As soon as the
Uh,
puck is released, like right, a little bit more. Once he releases it, you can see that. Yeah, that's really good actually. Like
there you go.
as
Let's
soon
see.
as he see if you can stop it just as the puck leaves the blade. Maybe we can show that right there. Just like that's good right there. That's good. So his
Yep.
right arm is it's a downward trajectory. So that tells me that he's creating more power. It's not coming up after a shot. It goes into a straight line, and there's space between his left hand and his body. That's really good. And now look at his feet. You see the distance between his feet? He's activating his hips. And I'm glad you brought up OV and Stamkos in their one timer. You know, a lot of people think that they are super, super strong, but they're also timing is very quick. So the hips are being used almost more than the arms are. So if you can picture this, the hips snapping towards the target really quickly, that allows the timing to be good and for them to generate power. But when in Kirby here, that downward pressure, and he's shooting in a condensed area. When I met him, he was receiving passes, loading it back to where that red line is, whatever that line is on the ice there. He would load it pretty far back and then take a shot. So he was working on condensing his preparation and condensing the space he used to shoot, and he's succeeded at that. He's been working really hard this offseason.
Sad for him what happened Saturday night, or maybe possible loss for the rest of the year. So we'll see. We have some kind of chemistry between him, Savsky, and New Hook since the beginning of the season. So very bad news, sad news for Kirby Doc. Unfortunately for the Montreal Canadiens, he's looking. He compared him like 2 years ago. Like this kid improved so much on many ways. His aspect of this game.
I agree 100%. And I don't think like knowing Kirby, and like I met him 3 years ago, and started working with him in his hometown in Edmonton, and that's you can see that's the Oilers practice facility we're at there. And the one thing I can say is this, that level of frustration for the management team and everybody else, but there's no one more frustrated than Kirby himself, because he really was looking forward to making an impact, not only personally on the score sheet, but him with his teammates and the actual fans. So if there's anybody listening, be patient. Oh, here's Colty. Like, see, you can see the differences in the left shot and the arm he's lifting up. This would be the second time I'm working with Colty. When he releases the puck, it's like he's doing a little bit of a lift there. His hand is open up and lifting, and that's what we're working on to fix that. When he gets into motion, I make a comment here. Watch his foot come up. See, he's got his foot there right up in the air like that, and his
Yeah,
knee is bent. The left knee is bent. So I made a comment to him saying, "Keep that fucking foot down, because that's your stability. That's your." And then when he comes around watch his next shot. I yelled, "Keep that foot down." Now watch, you'll see the difference in how he applies it right away. He won't lift the foot
here
up.
we go.
He's
You
kept
can see this time now his left foot will be more lower.
Yeah, it's on the ice. The toe needs to drag on the ice in the shot release, and then he fixed it right away, which is very good. So sometimes the shot release is not about working on the arm and hand and puck technique. It's working on stabilizing through his lower body. And then he did that, but he did it right away. Like it was easy. Like it was like, oh yeah, I have to keep my foot down if I want to get a good shot. And then actually, the video doesn't do the shot justice because it's hard to see the differences in velocity changes when the foot's down. But he's really like I can say I don't know. Like I just remember when I worked with the guys last summer. We were out in Edmonton, and I got a text from someone that I know really well at the NHL level, and he's like, "Kirby, Doc's going to Montreal," and I was going on the ice with them in 10 minutes, and I got it before he even knew that he got traded. Like I couldn't say anything to him, Coach Frenchie, because you're not supposed to. But I remember the next day he came up to me and said, "Why didn't you fucking tell me?" Like I'm like, he says that because the one thing he said, "I'm so excited to go to Montreal, but I'm sad because I wanted to play with my brother. But I now have work to do because I need to be able to produce when I go to Montreal."
They have a term in hockey. You can help. Maybe people can understand. I always said, separate your body. Your upper body should not work always with your lower body. You have to separation between both of them to make a better impact for your power, your strength, everything like that. Can you explain a bit more what you said? Separate your lower versus and the upper body.
Yes, and the funny thing is a lot of players like I explain it like this in an analogy comparison. Like I compare to so people can relate to it. So when golfers get ready to hit a golf ball, each golfer what they do is they have a pre-shot routine. Every golfer has their own specific pre-shot routine, and there's no two golfers that have an identical pre-shot routine. It's all unique. We are all like fingerprints. So when it comes to lower body and upper body separation, because we're comfortable doing something with our lower body, our upper body feels like, or our mind says, we have to support it. We have to support it, or vice versa. If our upper body does something, then our lower body and our mind is telling us to support what our upper body is doing. My job is to partly separate that. Like you don't have to have your feet, like in Colton Doc's um, case here, we're working on that foundation where you can see his left foot back. That's the stride formation. That's the foundation. That shot right there produces the most initial shot goals in the NHL since 2003. So that's why I use that as a foundation. But that's not the only way to shoot a puck. So my job is to get these guys to do single leg shots, lower body variances, but you can do whatever you want with your upper body. You don't have to prepare it the same way. It's okay that you switch it up. And the issue is when a player has been doing something for so long, Coach Frenchie, it's hard. I'm going to use this big word, but we try and stay away. Skills coaches should try and stay away from the word change. You don't want to say, hey, I'm going to change your shot. I'm going to change your skating. I'm going to change your stick. No, 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 no. We're going to fine tune it, improve it, modify, modify, modify. Because the mind says, okay, Coach Frenchie's going to make my skating a little bit better because of this motion pattern, and I'm not changing anything. I'm adding to it. I'm
That's a
adding to it,
great.
and then the mindset for the players. And like I just talked to a player yesterday. His name is Logan Stankoven, and he had gotten his first American League pro goal, and then he played a game. This is a player that's like Brendan Gallagher that feels like he needs to contribute. These players feel like they need to contribute to feel comfortable, but sometimes they get into these, well, let's call it confidence shifts, and then they need someone to help them to restore it. And they never lose it, but it just gets shifted. So our job is to not sound like we're going to change something. We're just going to help them.
Yeah, the mindset is very important for any athletes anyway. I'm going to go on the unloaded one timer. This is a goal from Perico you showed to the people is where the blade was still on the ice, I believe, right here. And you can give us a bit
Yes.
more what Perico does on that one, where you feel like this is a great spot by Perico. I think the blade is on the ice. I would say his skate behind is right there low, and he drop his body low at the same time with more power on the front of his body forward to the net.
Yes, man. CP, man. I'm glad you brought this clip up. Like this guy. I don't know if you know about this guy, but he's 6'8". He
Wow.
could, Coach Frenchie. He could hunt geese with a rake. He doesn't need a gun. He could just walk in the field and just pull them down like this. That's how tall he is. You know what I mean? Like, so, but CP here was working on that formation, that stride formation there. And the whole idea of what this clip means is that sometimes when you find the ability to find the open ice, you don't have to load up your stick so far away from the puck to release it with optimal precision or optimal speed or optimal power. So what we were working on for a while, and he has a lot of strength. He's known in St. Louis for having a pretty good shot. I wonder who his shooting coach is. But anyways, it's kind of important that people understand that these players are constantly trying to not only maintain what they have, but they're trying to improve what they have. So I come in and say, you don't need to load your stick when you're taking a one timer. You just need to meet it and greet it at a good position as long as your body's stable. And like when I look at stuff like this, and we've done this drill probably 500 times over the last 4 years,
Oh
where
wow.
he sneaks in off the point, and that's what people. I think any coaches that are out there, one of the reasons why coaches like us, Coach Frenchie and I, why we do these types of drills is because it may happen in a game. They're situational, so we don't want any anxiety. We don't want any stress levels to elevate. If you do it enough times, then when you get into the situation, hopefully you're going to succeed at it. And that's a really good clip there. But the whole idea behind this, Coach Frenchie, is the styles of releases that we have. So if you think of this, here's the blade, here's the puck. Um, you take a loaded one timer, or remember the old school days, we call it snapshot. So the stick comes off the ice, it hits the ice and the puck, and it makes noise because it's snapping. That's why it's called a snapshot. And then in this case here, CP, what he's doing is he's just taking the stick back, but leaving it on the ice. All he's doing is taking it back, leave it, and then just snap. It's still a snapshot, but his stick's just not loading up. It's just staying on the ice when he's taking the shot. So that's two different types of snapshots. And then the one that we're talking about that I like the most, I don't know if you have a clip of it, but there's the old school wrist shot where the puck stays on the tape, and when it's shot, it just gets pushed off like the old, and there's no sound. It's like a silent release. So it's like spy like. I call it the silencer. So if there's traffic in front and the puck's at the perimeter, and the player who gets to shoot recognizes that the goalie's vision is impaired, but if they make noise, a snap, the goalie's going to be like, oh, what? They're going to get big. But if they don't make any noise, kind of like a spy in a crowded area, they put a
Yeah.
silencer on their gun and no one hears them shoot and they get out of there. And that's what we want to do with these players, introduce these different types of shots, along with the formations, Coach Frenchie. So I feel
Wow.
like I'm talking your ears off. And that's
Yeah.
just three.
That's amazing. I think we have one is about the hip rotation. I think that's one over there. I think it's Brendan. I think he's teaching right now by you.
Yes, this is Charlton. Yeah, he's playing at D2 college, and he just said, "I need to work. What can I do to help me with my one-timer timing?" So this is a drill where you pull the puck to yourself, and the idea is to do two things. One, snap your hips. Number two, the left leg has to go straight. You have to activate those muscles to make the knee come in a straight line. So when he takes the shot, you can see there's the stride formation. that's the formation we want him to be in. If someone was passing him the puck, like to Ovi or to Stamkos or to Cooch or to Pedersen, and that's the formation we want them to be in. So this is a player that's applying those formations to allow him to do it in a game. That's really good work on his part. The other thing is, in these cases, when you're doing these, anyone out there, if you have some players or coaches or parents that's watching, your kids can do and your players can do this drill. And the two focal points are, okay, they can do it themselves. But one thing is, when they do this drill, number one, they pull it towards them. The puck has to be moving, Coach Frenchie. It's got to be in motion. Number two, just in this actual drill, you want them to make noise on the puck. So they get that downward pressure. So they're loading their stick off the ice, and all they're thinking about is snapping their hips. It's like turning towards the target right away so that your hips go quick, your hands follow through.
That's awesome. If you don't mind, we're going to go with the period of question where a lot of people ask a question. So I will go there for the next 15 minutes before let you go. And we're going to go through everybody like that. We have one from Enartab said, "Welcome, Tim. I have the opportunity to visit your hockey school here in Brandon, Ontario. Can you tell us a little bit about your service offer and the great staff you have?"
Okay, so let me read this. Tell us about a little bit about your services offered. Yes, okay, I appreciate thanks for that question. That's friggin' awesome. So I've had the opportunity to be able to work at the NHL level, and I want to share that information with everybody. And so I have all kinds of different services. I have myself personally, and I have a bunch of instructors that are highly. I don't want to say that they are certified, because you're not allowed to say that, because Hockey Canada will give you poo poo, but they've been trained by me and have worked by my side, and I have monitored them for many, many years. Number one. Number two, I have this personal, for coaches out there, I have a personal customized drill progression and packages that allows for coaches to use different types of drills when they're doing things. Some of them might look familiar to you, but if they do, it's because I had already had kind of designed it, and everyone uses it. And a lot of coaches in NHL use a lot of my drills, and that's a blessing that happens. And I also have like these at-home shooting packages, like consultation, like we're doing right now, Coach Frenchie. Sometimes guys like us who have our own knowledges, we can't be everywhere. So a good way to share it is online. So you can have your kids shoot some pucks. You can send it in a video form, and I can analyze it and send back a telestrated thing. Or even we could just do something like this, where I'm watching your players shoot a puck. A lot of pros do it, because it's hard for us to get around. And I feel like these types of situations, and people like Coach Frenchie out there, who's getting all this information out, is just a blessing for us all.
Yeah, well said. Marco asked this question about Kirby Doc. I don't know if you can see the question over there. So, having worked with Kirby so closely, how do you think he is angling this setback, and what advice would you give to him?
Oh man, like I like to I'm going to start from the back and work to the front. I really like to let all the dust settle when this type of stuff happens. It's probably, I say it would be beneficial for them to get on their rehab track and their physicality with the chop shop, get their routines in, and then I'll reach out and I'll talk about his mindset. I'll ask him how he feels in his mind, not the injury, but because I know knowing Kirby, he's like Brendan Gallagher. These guys are like, they just want to compete. They want the team to succeed. They want the city to succeed. So I can say, when I do talk to him, I'm just going to say, you have to let things happen. You can't control the time it takes, and you want to be at 110% when you come back.
Great. We have another question for another top. Having worked and see today's player with a different lens, most hockey fans, can you name 4 or 5 players you have see and rank them and the order with regards to who has the best shot? Great question.
Wow, it's that's a great question too, and sometimes with me, what happens is my list of players that I like, it interchanges. It's like your top 10 things that happen in life. But as far as the shot is concerned, it's hard to compare because sometimes I like Stamkos when he shoots because he is more of a one timer shooter than getting himself into an opportunity when he's attacking and then shooting in a stride formation. So he's got more goals where he's a little bit stationary than when he's in motion. But his shot is really good. Him and Ovi on the one timer side is really good. Now, when it comes to releasing a puck, with optimal power, speed, and accuracy. I really like Tarasenko. Tarasenko is really good because of the way he has the puck always prepared. So he never has to load it. He just has to shoot it. And he activates his wrists more than the push and pull. Like your top hand does a pulling action, your
Yeah,
bottom hand does a pushing action. So he minimizes that. What he'll do is he'll pull it, activate his wrist really quickly, which allows the puck to be super deceptive. I like him. I like Pedersen in Vancouver. He's got a really good shot release. One of the sleeper players that's out there that's in Dallas now is Sam Steele. Sammy Steele. He's not known as a shooter because he's still a prospected individual. But I worked with him the last 3 years, and his shot is really good too. And that's just to name a few. Like I could go on and on. Matthews and Bedard, those guys are separate. Like, yeah, I wouldn't. Those guys are kind of like they're sitting on top of the castle, watching everyone else try to catch up to them. But
great.
that's obvious, Matthews and Bedard. But that would be a list of 4 or 5 guys that I really like.
Great answer. Marco, ask you this. Is it true that hard work is even more important que pure talent? Who has the hardest worker or you ever work with?
Yeah, yeah. That you know what, Marks? That's true. I feel like nowadays when it comes to super high skill and super hard work, you know, it's funny that one of the sayings. I'm going to try and see if I can say this saying correctly, but I think they say that hard work hard work is more successful than skill until skill works hard.
I
So it's something like that where like the hard and you'll find these new school coaches who are looking for work ethic. They already know what the skill is, and because these new school coaches rely on the internal or external or the players' own skills coaches to help them to fine tune their skills, now they're like, hey, you can go work with your skills coach if you want us to bring your skills coach, your shooting coach, your skating coach in here. I don't care, but when you're in the work environment, you need to have the top work ethic. But the player who's the most hardest working individual is by far number 11 and on Montreal Canadien. He by far, in my opinion, I think he's been registered as the strongest in 2018. I think he was the strongest player on the team. Could bench the most. He could squat the most. His grip strength was the hardest. Stuff like that. It was like 2018, 2019. I mean, he's getting older now, but that's just a feather in his cap for always wanting to be the hardest worker, and everyone else wants to be like him.
We have a fun fact, Tim, here. Look like, can you share with us the story about Gallagher that show us his competitiveness? One of the best you had beat at the ping pong, at the beat you at the ping pong.
Yeah, that little prick Gallagher, I'll tell you, man. Because like Coach Frenchie. So when I go work with him, the last 5 years, I've been working with him since his draft year, and so I went to his house a couple of summers ago, and normally I would stay with his mom and his dad at the Mister and Mrs. Gallagher's house, but this time, for whatever reason, he had family. There was other family that was there. So Brendan's like, "You're gonna have to stay at my place." I'm like, "Look, whatever. As long as I get back and forth to the rink." He says, "I got a room for you." And so he had just bought this house in Tawasin, British Columbia, on Pat Quinn's, or I can't remember what the golf course is called, but there's the Pat Quinn restaurant there and everything. So I'm walking around checking out. He's got a table tennis table, a ping pong table up in the games room. So I'm like, oh, like, man, I used to be a high school champion. Well, no, but I used to be really good. Really, I could, if I needed to really play, I could play. So I'm like, let's play, man. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, let's play. So we're just rallying back and forth, Coach Frenchie. We're just rallying, tick, 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 tick. Just easy. He goes, well, why are we wasting our time? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, let's play. I go, like, you mean like a game up to 7? He goes, no, up to 21. That's what it's 21. Don't you know, Coach Turkey? It's 21. Okay, let's play. Let's go. So we throw the ball. I win the rally. I get to serve. And you know what it is, right, Coach Frenchie? It's like 5 serves, you switch. 5 serves, you switch, whatever. So I'm like, oh, fuck, this was easy. I got this kid, no problem. So I served the ball, and I think it was like 7 minutes. It was 21-1 for him. First game was 21-1. So now and I'm playing like as it's going on, I'm playing like I'm getting used to it. I'm getting back used to it. So I'm like, I'm just going to take this game as a practice game. Let's play again. Let's go. So he's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Come on. So, and it looks like he's just like, just making it look easy, right, Pierre? So the next game was 21-3. He wins. So now I'm starting to get competitive. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to try. So I look at him in the face. I'm like, I'm going to try this one. Let's go. Right. So I'm like putting my game face on, and I'm getting serious because I just lost 2 games in a row. It's like, okay, let's go, Coach Turkey. And I'm like, all right, let's go. 21-6. So I got 6.
Getting
21 to
closer.
1. I doubled it. 21-1, 21-3, 21-6. So I'm like, okay, best out of 7. Let's go. I'm going to get these next 4 games. I got this. You know what he does? He does this. He takes the racket from his right hand and puts it in his left hand. Okay, let's go. I'm like, you 21-6 again. He beats me with his left hand. He doesn't like to lose.
He just like
Doesn't
his
matter.
mindset is that way here.
It doesn't matter what it is. When these guys when I'm working on the ice with these guys doing skills, they like to take 20 to 25 minutes at the end and have a fun scrimmage.
Yeah.
With him and Lucic on the ice, it isn't fun. These guys, they're trying to make each other better. So when they get into board situations or they're scrumming for the puck, you can see their tension elevate in control because they just want the puck all the time. They want to win. They want to win for their team. Whether it has a 14-year-old kid on with them or whatever, they're going to win. It's unbelievable.
They
Like,
compete. Well,
it's unbelievable.
we have a few peer questions before we let you go. We don't want to take so much of your time. I appreciate a lot so far. Marco asked you about the system of Montreal Canadiens play the man-to-man on the defensive zone. Do you feel like this is good enough for the young core, or this is the right system for them right now at this moment?
You know what? I have I can be as political as possible, but there's no sense in doing that. In the defensive zone coverages, in my opinion, my personal opinion, I feel like no matter where the puck is nowadays, we need to have 5 players in the picture. You know what that means? 5 players in the picture is if whatever camera angle is on, no matter how close it is, we need to have all this support in there. But everyone needs to know what they're doing. So the point zone coverage away from the puck, the net zone coverage away from the puck has to be really communicative. So if the puck does come out, someone knows who's going where and what has to happen. And the other thing is, I would ask, if I were the defensive zone coverage or the defensive coach, I would ask the first player in, whether it's D1 or F1, into our own deep corners. I'd ask them to be as physical as possible. And it's important that particular player communicates with F2 or D2 to make sure that if we need to get out, if we need to get out quick, and if it's going to go behind the net and it's going to go over behind the net the other way, that they know when to release on time, because a lot of times they're premature. They'll leave their player to try and see if they're anticipating it's going to happen and it doesn't, and that's when the turnover takes place. So those coverages are super important, but it starts with the coaching.
Great point. William asked you about, can you break down the shooting mechanic and would you say is the most similar shooter in the existing NHL right now? He's talking about Connor Bedard, I believe. Yep. And is a good shooter or a great shooter and why?
Yeah. So you know what? Great question. Like I said earlier, in my personal opinion, and I've never been wrong ever, unless my wife's involved, then I'm always wrong. But you know, Connor Bedard probably, when it comes to the dynamic technical motion pattern, from the preparation point to the motion point to the release point through the shot, he's probably one of the most technical shooters that I've had the opportunity to work with. He would be number one. And one of the things that makes him unique is that preparation part, and that actual angle change is, like I said, it's not coming inward or lateral. It goes back a little bit. It's like he takes it back and then forward to shoot. And that's super difficult for any defensive player to anticipate when it's going to come off the blade. And Matthews is really good as well. You know, he does right now. Bedard is doing what I call synchronized releases. So everything all happens at the same time, everything
Yeah.
all chains react. And what Matthews does, because he's a proven player for many years, he takes that timing when he's shooting and he delays it and he changes it and he pauses and then he synchronizes and then he gets the puck to go in an outward preparation. So that makes him good too. So I would say Bedard and Matthews would be the top two shooters in my opinion right now.
Awesome, great answer. Marco asked you about Sarkoski. You have some kind of criticism about his tape on the stick last year. Not many, some many NHL players use all the tape on the blade of the stick, and some use Sarkoski just a piece of the tape on the stick blade. What do you think about that situation for Sarkoski?
You, that too is a phenomenal question, and here's why. You know, what we do with our sticks is kind of like super personal. But when it comes to the activation, so what a puck does when it is being shot, it starts at the heel and then it rolls along, it goes up to get height when the blade is kind of like being going under and over the puck. So think of this. Some players, they don't have tape for the first little part of the blade. So this is a different surface than when it gets to the tape, the puck is like, what the fuck is that? That's a different feeling from back here. That's way different. So pucks like consistency. But if you don't have tape back here, then my suggestion is only shoot it from where the tape is so it stays consistent. So the puck stays consistent. But the performance, the color of the tape, we used to say in the old days, why are you using white tape? The goalie can see the puck. It doesn't matter anymore. Things happen so fast. You as a player, you as a coach should be teaching your players that they need to be comfortable. How your butt end is, how you tape your stick is going to play a role in how you feel and how you think. Do it the way you like it, but I would suggest making it consistent so that's the same all the time. Good question.
Yeah, and one from about from Minarta, I believe. Does the rotation of the puck from a pass have an impact on the player one timer?
Yes, 100%. 100%. You know, sometimes, and this is a good example, and that's why I have this puck with these lines on it, is to show players that it needs to be spinning for it to fly properly through the air. If it doesn't spin, and think of it traveling, it's like throwing a frisbee or trying to throw a rock across the water, to skip it across the water. If it doesn't spin, it ain't going anywhere. The more that it spins, the better it can go across the water or across the ice. In a puck's case, it can slide there and it kind of like will skip and jump. If it's not spinning, it'll start to roll because there's no spin on it. So when it gets to a player's stick, you have to think of this. Now look at this. If I'm a righty and I pass the puck and it rotates this way, and I get to another righty who's shooting it, it's going to continue to spin the same way. But if I'm a lefty and I pass it and then it's going this way, then all of a sudden it gets to the righty, it's got to stop and start spinning the other way. So how we impact the puck is so critical. And then you also want to create downward pressure, everybody. To get that stick to work the way you want it to, you got to flex it. And when you flex it, that's when that kick point return acts for you, and it helps to project the puck at a more speeding velocity or with more force.
This is a great comments about that. You answered how awesome. Alan Bianco finished with a 2-3 question for Montreal Canadian. Alan Bianco asked you about this. How does Caulfield get so much velocity on his shot? Being a little guy, so why a player with a small physical like weight and compared to the guy with 30 pounds, 230 have more power or no power?
Oh man, all these great questions. We might be here till midnight, and I'm just going to get this recording and make money from it because it's really good questions. Now listen, that's a great question. So a player's tool, their stick, like I make jokes about this stuff. A skating coach, if you ask a skating coach, hey, what's the most important piece of equipment a player has? What do you think a skating coach says? The skates. I'm a shooting coach. So it's like, hey, what do you think the most important piece of Coach Turkey? What's the most important piece of equipment a player? I should say hockey stick, because I'm a shooting coach. So the actual most important piece of equipment that a player has is right here. It's what their confidence level is and what they have. But if their tools don't match this, then they have issues. Then there's confidence fluctuation. So Cole Caulfield's stick matches his technique really good. The flex point in it, the height of the stick, the lie of the stick, the curve of the stick, it is like an extension of his body. And that's why it's so good, and that's why he's so good with it. And I'm going to say this, coaches, I'm going to go out on a limb. These manufacturers that make sticks, the Bowers of the world, the Warriors of the world, the Sherwoods of the world, their suggested flex for players has always been half their body weight, half their mass. So if you're 125 pounds or 140 or 150 pounds, say it's easier to do 150 pounds, then they say you should be using a 75 flex. If that were the case, I'm 250 pounds. I should be using 125 flex, but I use a 70 flex because that's right for me. Because when I shoot a puck, like I was explaining earlier, Coach Frenchie, shooters are like us hockey players and everyone in the world, especially hockey players, we're like fingerprints. We do things the way we want to do it. So us as skills coaches got to figure out what that fingerprint is and how their tools fit into that fingerprint.
Great comment about that. So a young man, like you said, it was sometime like a coach who said, many coaches who said, split half of your weight, put the flex on your stick. So honestly, that's not the right answer you give to the young man, right? Young player.
Absolutely. There's so many different variables that are out there. The situations change so many times. That's why we have to, like you said in the beginning, we're talking about the mindset, Coach Frenchie. Sometimes we have to put them in the right mindset. Do you remember here's a great example. Do you remember Kyle Chipchura?
Yeah. He's a head coach now, or assistant coach now.
So Kyle Chipchura, Chippy, when he was playing, we had to suggest to him to go see a yoga coach and a breathing coach, because when he was in competitive mode, he was so tense. Everything he did was like this. So he wouldn't breathe. So if you don't get air, what do you lose? Power. You get fatigued quickly. So we had to get him to teach him to get oxygen. And that's one step to becoming a professional athlete, is getting oxygen so you can exert proper energies at the right time and recover at the right time. So that would be my answer to that.
That's great. We have a question for Pierre Martin about Albert Jacquet. What do you think about Jacquet, different shot that he has with the Montreal Canadiens? I don't know if you work with him or you see his clips.
Yeah, no, I've seen him around. I haven't so there's we're going to call the Guinness World Book of Records because I haven't worked with him, but I can sense it's going to come up in the future. Good question. You saw him on a actual quick release wrist shot, put it through the mesh. And that's the spin on the puck that I'm trying to explain to everybody. When you have that spin generated like that, it's kind of like it works like Vaseline. It just slips. It's going so quick and so straight. It just slipped right through the net. So I think his shot and his shot selection is really good. But the thing about him is that his stability, his skating. I was talking about this last night after the game, and his ability to move laterally efficiently without losing energy is way above average, and that helps his confidence to do a whole bunch of different things. Handle the puck, have his head up, take his shot, and recognize what shot to use. And he's so stable, he can even defend himself and his teammates because of that stability. And that's a high built or a high level of confidence.
Great comment about that. It will be my last question for you is like, how, why, or how, maybe because of you, because you're shooting coach, but we have better shooter in hockey now compared to was before, right? The four line now is more skill and the accuracy. You give them 2 inches, the puck goes straight there, bar down, inside the post. What make them better compared like 15 years ago, 20 years ago? I understand you talk about hockey, the flex, everything like that, plus the stick, but why they are so much better scorer today compared to many years ago?
Coach Frenchie, one of the things that's a great question. One of the things I come up with is, I don't know, about 23 years ago, we had the All-Star game in Toronto in 2000. And I was in my third year in the NHL as a proven non-player. I never played in the league. I never played pro. It's super hard to crack the circles as a non-player, but I finally cracked the circles. I got invited to an after party after the All-Star game because I knew that Mr. Al McInnes was going to be there. So my mission was to find Mr. McInnes because I needed, as a technical shooting, it's super technical. Like, I'm talking surgical. I want to surgically know how players shoot a puck. So my mission was to get to Mr. McInnes and ask him, how in the hell did he generate all that power while he was standing still most of the time? His slap shot was feared. So I remember making my way up to him at an after party, and he had 2 beers, one in each hand. So I'm thinking maybe I don't know, he might have had one too many, and I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's funny because he had 1 beer in his right hand that was warm, and one in his. So the warm beer he just kept holding all night because everybody wants to shake your hand when you're a superstar. And he would just be like, he would just cheers him. So I went up to him, but he took the beer out of his hand because I said, "Hey, Mr. McInnes, my name's Tim Turk." He goes, "You're that shooting guy." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." Like, yeah, hey man, I'm with the Philadelphia Flyers, and can I ask you a question? He's like, "Sure, go ahead, shoot." And I'm thinking, I got this moment. There's a little bit noise going on. I backed him into a corner. I go, because I wanted to hear what he had to say. So I said, "Mr. McInnes." He goes, "Call me Al." I'm like, "Okay, Al." Yeah, because I'm a young kid. I'm like, "Hey, Al, what is it that you do? Can you explain to me how you generate all that power right at the puck?" And he looks at me and goes, "I don't know. I just do it." And I'm like, "Fuck, that's not good." I wasted all the time. So I remember leaving there. So to answer the question, I think what's happening now with these shooters is they're understanding what they need to do to get it better. Coaches like us are showing them about the stride pushes. We're showing them about the shot mechanics. And in Bedard's case, when I met him, it's not about teaching them something new to get better. Sometimes it's explaining what they're already doing really good so they can connect the mind to the body. And once they feel what they're doing naturally, then they can enhance it on their own. They can make it stronger, they can make it quicker because they know what they're doing now. Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, "Yeah, because your hand's starting here." And then what happens is when your hand gets here, you're snapping your wrist like, he goes, "I can do that faster if you want me to." I'm like, "Yeah, I want you." So it's about fine tuning what they have and having the right tools.
That's absurd about that. And, now they have so many tools. They can learn quickly, quicker at young age compared like we before 20, 30 years ago with the social media, YouTube, and, access to many coaches now there because many athletes have different kind of coach. You said 20, 30 years ago, you have only the power skating coach, honestly, nothing else. Now you have so many coaches you can access for young players, everything like that. For finish this, I want to know what is your not your favorite players, but I know you talk about Gallagher, but any other players, young prospect you work with, or maybe draft last year or 22, 23, and the Hawks coming in 2024, where you believe they're going to have a great career in NHL by the work ethic and the way they are so explosive with their shot.
Yeah, we're going to need 2 hours for that one. But I just when I was working with Brendan this last summer, and I was in the locker room with him and a bunch of NHL players, and we're working on technical shooting and talking about the drill progression. I received a text message, and the text message was hey. It just said hey. I'm looking at it. It says hey. I would really like to work with you. I need help with my shot. If you're willing to help me. And that I saw the number on there, and it was like a long number from overseas. It has like 38 or 46
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. And I'm looking at the number. I saw the player's name, and I'm in the room, and I'm like, hey guys, does anyone know a Dolan or it sounds Swedish, a Darlene, a Dolan? Does anyone know a Darlene, Dolan? So there's a guy, and they're looking at me, and they're going, seriously, Turkey? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, so one guy in the room says, Turkey, it's my roommate. I go, the guy was Tyson Jost, who was in the room. He's played with the Sabres. So I'm like, well, who is he? He goes, Turkey, he's Rasmus Dahlin. You don't, I go, I don't know. I didn't even know he's a first overall pick. I didn't know he just signed. So I told him, he said he wanted to work with me. So I said to him, I said, listen, I said, Razzie, I'm only available this day and this day during this week, and that's it. Like, that's all I have. If you want to come and work you. So he left Athens, Greece with his girlfriend to come and fly in, stayed for 2 days in Brampton, Ontario, worked with me 2 days. So a player like that is what I really like.
That's amazing, right? The young you at the beginning of the show, I always try to get some nuggets from people, interview the people come here. And you said at the beginning of the show, the work ethic, the kid all want to learn more and more to become the best of what they can get. They have a greatness inside of them. And that's what maybe changed a lot now, who they become. And it's another great example why those kids want to learn, whatever they are, 28, 29 years old. Martin Saint we explained that, you can still learning at 30, 33 years old to become a better hockey player in NHL.
Absolutely, Coach Frenchie. It's those young players, whether they're 12, 13, and still at the beginner levels, you never know what they're going to turn into if they're passionate enough. And that's what feeds me. That is my passion, because they could become that superstar, or they can just become a much, much better person when they grow up in life because they've had their experiences with guys like us. And that's important.
Mr. Tim, this is the end for us together. It was an amazing, great time we had with you. A lot of people in the chat were really pleased to have your comments. We learned so much in a quick hour. I know it would take for many other hours to know about a little bit more about the shooting. And people like you make the hockey better by your passion, the love of the game, and the love to skate and teaching people, whatever is a young kids or coaches left and right. This is the most important thing. That's the reason I do YouTube channel creator. It's just want to sharing the love of the game. I'm far to be like an expert, but at least I want to learn a little bit better every single day to become better. So honestly, I'm very grateful and thankful you gave us your time to be with us tonight, and we're really pleased. Hopefully, we can match again another time. We have a busy schedule you have. I know, we know. I think the last time we spoke, he was coming back from Sweden and at the beginning of September. I think we start to connect together. And I'm sure your schedule is full with many, many commitments you have in front of you. The best way the people can reach you, what is the best way for you?
They can just go to my website, timturkhockey.com. I have a website, hockeyskillstraining.com. And if you go there and I don't, you tell me if you saw me here with Coach Frenchie and you mentioned that, I'm always willing to give discounts because it's very important for us to learn what we can when we can. And Coach Frenchie, I am more than grateful to be here and meet you and talk to you. And I would gladly come back anytime. Thank you very much. And people should know that what you're doing right now is very important in everyone's life in hockey and in real life. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Mr. Tim. We wish you an amazing, great night. I look forward to see you next time.
Okay, thank you, Coach Frenchie. See you, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
have a good night, Mr. Tim. Thanks so much. Coach Tim Turk was with us tonight, guys, on this great show of the App Nation. That's conclude the show tonight. We're going to be back in the next 15 minutes with the App Nation with Enar Tap. He's going to be joining us. Maybe Marco Larabie, if you have other time to come with us. We'll talk about the big news in Montreal Canadiens. So stay tuned. And the next 10 minutes, we'll be back. And I look forward to see each one of you. Have an amazing, great night, everybody. I will see you next time.